Susan, I forbid it. I absolutely put my foot down. The idea.
Oh, but now I need only listen to me for a minute while you...
This moment, perhaps perfectly, captures the essence of Bringing Up Baby. A peculiar and exhilarating spin on the romantic comedy, offering a delightful blend of humor, noise, and chaotic energy, making a madcap merry-go-round of a movie that never leaves room to catch its breath and come to its senses.
Oh, never mind, Susan.
What'd I say? What'd I say? What'd I do? What did I say? What did I say? What did I do, David?
Upon its release in 1938, Bringing Up Baby garnered mixed reaction from movie critics and poor box office returns. Its lackluster arrival would find director Howard Hawks dismissed from a coveted directing position, and would find movie star Katherine Hepburn labeled as box office poison by an association of theater exhibitors.
What's the matter?
What's the matter? Did you ever stop to think what would happen if Baby and George got together?
Oh, they'd probably like each other.
And if they didn't?
If they didn't, why, Baby would eat George.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Today, however, Bringing Up Baby endures as one of the most endearing romantic comedies ever created. Unknowingly in its time, the film would eventually establish itself as a pinnacle in a genre that was not yet fully defined. It's the classic tale of opposites attracting, order meeting chaos, and love finding a way through absolutely ridiculous circumstances, balanced with a skillful fusion of witty verbal slapstick, subtle social commentary, and an abundance of absurd hijinks and physical comedy. Bringing Up Baby ultimately became a definitive example, the unlikely archetype for a burgeoning style of storytelling in Hollywood: the screwball comedy.
Now, my future wife has always regarded me as a man of some dignity. Privately, I'm convinced that I have some dignity. Now, it isn't that I don't like you, Susan, because, after all, in moments of quiet, I'm strangely drawn toward you, but, well, there haven't been any quiet moments. Our relationship has been a series of misadventures from beginning to end.
The screwball, in terms of its origins in baseball, by definition, is a breaking ball intentionally designed to move in the opposite direction of just about every other breaking pitch. In other words, it completely defies expectation. Similarly, the screwball comedy does the same thing. It took the common and accepted formula of the romantic narrative and turned it upside down, putting silly, unpredictable, and refreshing twists on traditional love story tropes, satirizing them to a point of pure comedy.
Oh, now, Alice, before we're married this afternoon, there's one thing we must have clear. I don't want any woman interfering with my affairs. It's fatal.
That's the stuff, buddy.
The screwball was born out of many circumstances, most notably the evolving changes in American society. The 19th Amendment, established just over a decade by the 1930s, had given women the right to vote, initiating and validating an equal standing with men in both social and relational contexts. Additionally, the ongoing Great Depression had intensified the divisions between social classes. The gap between rich and poor was ever widening, as was an accompanying fascination with the lifestyles of the upper elite. As well, the implementation of the Hays Production Code, which imposed strict guidelines on Hollywood films, aiming to keep movies modest, censoring any sort of explicit content.
It ain't a gag, it's the truth. That nice, sweet, innocent girl. That nice, sweet, innocent girl is just a...
There's still a Hays office, sweaters or no sweaters.
She's worse than that.
In this context, the screwball comedy was designed out of a need to navigate and confront the evolving social landscape, as well as the developing boundaries of Hollywood romance. Familiar tropes of screwball often find our characters at odds with one or most of these factors. For instance, female characters are portrayed as independent and strong-willed, oftentimes displaying an intelligence greater than their male counterparts. This battle of the sexes dynamic would challenge traditional gender roles and the damsel in distress archetype that was more prevalent in romantic narratives of the time.
Well, would you mind if I sat down?
There's been a lamp burning in the window for you, honey. Here.
Oh, I jumped out that window a long time ago, Walter.
Love stories in screwball comedy could also showcase and emphasize the contrasts in economic backgrounds, compelling dynamics that allowed protagonists to view or experience the other side, usually impacting their own lives in meaningful ways.
It makes me feel so mature and grown up.
What does?
Having a protege, you're the first one I ever had.
You've never had any others?
No, you're the first one, and it's terribly thrilling. Not only does it occupy my mind, but I think it's character building, too.
Mm-hmm.
Wealthy characters fell in love with characters less prosperous, and vice versa, insisting to audiences that the Hollywood ending, where one could find romance and riches simultaneously, was indeed possible.
Johnny! What? I'm gonna buy a dog. You know, one of those great big woolly ones, Johnny, with the bangs all over it.
Mary!
I know it'll have fleas, but I don't care. I've wanted one all my life.
Skillfully maneuvering about the Hays Code restrictions, screwball comedies would resort to fast and snappy dialogue to help simulate the chemistry that could only go so far on screen. Screenwriters became more sneaky and seemingly wholesome when depicting certain unspoken aspects of romance, as to get by censors.
What are you thinking about?
Nothing.
But it was this roadblock specifically that defined the screwball and not only forced it, but elevated it into something singular, entertaining, and strikingly profound. Understated innuendo and subtle comedic pratfalls would be cleverly employed to highlight and playfully resemble the intricacies and humorous complexities present in the varying stages of romantic relationships.
Marriage is a beautiful thing. And when you've been married as long as I have, you'll appreciate it too.
Your food is getting ice cold. You're always complaining about your food.
Will you shut your big mouth? I'll eat when I get good and ready, and if you don't like it, you know what you can do. So shut up. Lucy, darling, marriage is a beautiful thing.
These themes, among a handful of others, would find heavy play within the screwball comedy.
Mother says I'm a throwback to my great-grandfather. He was a pirate.
Honest?
No, a pirate.
While the true original Screwball is up for debate, the most notable example would be in 1934 with Frank Capra's It Happened One Night.
Excuse me, lady, but that upon which you sit is mine.
I beg your pardon?
The film saw the unlikely pair of Clark Gable as a down-on-his-luck reporter and Claudette Colbert as a spoiled society woman on the lam, who could potentially give him that big story he's been waiting for.
Your ego is absolutely colossal.
Yeah, not bad. How's yours?
Two contrasting characters from different backgrounds with different desires are brought together by chance or fate to meet a common goal, somehow against all odds finding love along the way. It Happened One Night laid the groundwork for the screwball comedy, serving as a basic prototype for the genre in the years to come.
Holy jumping catfish, you'd drive a guy crazy.
And Bringing Up Baby, just 4 years later, would take that model to wildly new heights.
Miss Susan, how did you get here?
Influence.
In March of 1937, acclaimed director Howard Hawks signed a contract with RKO Pictures to develop and direct a high-budget action-adventure movie called Gunga Din. When that project was postponed due to casting issues, Hawks shifted some of his focus to an adaptation of a short story, Bringing Up Baby, by Hagar Wilde. This story had humored him, and he was determined to make it into a film, convincing RKO to purchase the rights. He then paired original writer Wilde with screenwriter Dudley Nichols to pen the script together. Interestingly, as the two developed a screenplay, they also developed a romantic relationship, which perhaps dosed their writing with a tangible energy and banter, an apparent and genuine quality of the film.
Oh.
Well, I did it once with the trunk. Anyway, David, when they find out who we are, why, they'll let us out.
When they find out who you are, they'll pad the cell.
Bringing Up Baby sees Dr. David Huxley, a calculated and devoted paleontologist on the cusp of completing a fully reconstructed dinosaur for his museum. He's also engaged to be married, perhaps reluctantly, to his icy and overly driven assistant.
What are you thinking of, David, after receiving this telegram?
Oh, well, we planned
Why,
it.
as soon as we're married, we're coming directly back here and you're going on with your work.
Oh, well, Alice, gee,
Now, once and for all, David, nothing must interfere with your work.
Oh.
Our marriage must entail no domestic entanglements of any kind.
You mean?
I mean of any kind, David.
In his pursuit of obtaining a possible $1 million grant for his museum, he inadvertently crosses paths with the free-spirited and spontaneous socialite, Susan Vance, who quickly, actively, and hilariously becomes more entangled in his serious affairs.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, hello. You're sitting on your hat.
I know it.
Without much delay, Susan finds that she is wholeheartedly smitten with David herself, and she'll go to extreme lengths to win his affection in her own zealous and unconstrained ways. Adding to the mayhem, she is also tasked with babysitting her brother's tame leopard, Baby.
Well, I wouldn't get a leopard, David. My brother Mark got him. He's hunting in Brazil, and I guess he caught him.
Oh, of course, it's a stuffed leopard.
Of course, now, why should my brother Mark be hunting stuffed leopards in Brazil when he used stuffed leopard, when he can find them right here in New York?
Subsequently, the two must work together to reclaim a vital dinosaur bone that her yappy dog George has buried somewhere on her family's sprawling Connecticut estate, all while attempting to secure that $1 million grant for David's museum. Howard Hawks was an ideal choice to helm the film. As a master and innovator across many genres, he had already proven himself within the industry through a handful of well-respected dramas, crime, and war films. Most notably, he had directed 20th Century, one of the earliest screwball features ever made.
Now, don't interrupt us.
no matter what happens.
Oh, darling. Darling. Remember that we love each other. Who is that?
Who?
That fella.
Kissing her. This is the final irony.
Firmly cementing his place as an influential figure for the Screwball style itself.
Very clever, O.J. You had us both fooled for a minute. I never thought I should sink so low as to become an actor.
Hawks' versatility and understanding of the genre ensured that Bringing Up Baby could be an impactful experience and, most importantly, make audiences laugh. Though his comedic approach would in fact be remarkably simple.
What did you think of when you were making? Nothing. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, right.
In the role of David Huxley was Cary Grant, who at the time was steadily establishing himself as a prominent leading man in Hollywood. He had featured in a variety of films, excelling in both dramas and comedies. He was also making his mark on the screwball genre in particular, having just appeared in both Topper and The Awful Truth in 1937. Grant's Hollywood star was undoubtedly on the rise. Up until Bringing Up Baby, his on-screen characters had been more suave and sophisticated. This film, however, would see a clear departure from that distinction. Cast completely against type, he plays a socially clumsy buffoon put into a variety of absurd and humiliating situations, unthinkable for similar leading actors of the time. But Cary Grant dives in headfirst, demonstrating his commitment and his ability as an awkward and playful physical comedian.
May I check your hat, sir?
Excuse me?
Check your hat.
Oh, no, I better... Well, maybe you... I dropped my hat. Well, I'd better hang on to it.
Hawks had directed Grant to channel silent film star Harold Lloyd in his portrayal, a direction that is not only modeled in his oafish appearance, but in his mannerisms and comedic timing as well. Cary Grant gives David such a distinct likability. He's a thoughtful and hardworking fellow navigating through a confusingly difficult day with a shocking amount of grace and empathy, though always at the ready with a witty wisecrack.
Susan, I don't know. You look at everything upside down. I've never known anyone quite like you.
You just had a bad day, that's all.
Oh, well, that's a masterpiece of understatement.
The role of Susan Vance was written specifically for Katherine Hepburn and her genuine, energetic nature in mind. Though much like Grant, Susan Vance would be in great contrast to Hepburn's previous on-screen roles, which had primarily consisted of acclaimed dramas, one of which had earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress. Despite her previous successes, her most recent outings had been box office failures. Hepburn's Hollywood star was losing its luster, and Bringing Up Baby offered her a chance to showcase her unseen talents as a bright and fearless comedian, potentially reinvigorating her career with more kinds of big screen vehicles.
No, but if you'd only wait while I explain, I just gave you my picture. Oh, you've torn your coat.
Susan should be incredibly irritating as the wacky and entitled fast-talking socialite bringing upheaval to every situation she finds herself in, but remarkably, Hepburn infuses her with such charm and spirit that we can't help but be endeared to her.
Oh, hello.
This is my car.
Oh, good. Then would you mind moving it out of the way?
No, this is my car.
Yes, I understand that. If you move it back about 4 feet, well, I'll be able to get out.
Well, I'm afraid you made a mistake. Maybe this is your...
Surprisingly, Hepburn, with her relative inexperience within explicit comedy like Bringing Up Baby, had initially struggled with the role, delivering lines in a hammy way, deliberately aiming to be funny. Howard Hawks had suggested former vaudeville talent and Bringing Up Baby co-star Walter Catlett step in and guide her comedy a bit more specifically.
Hold on there, bub. Just a minute. She hasn't got an answer.
I certainly have. She's my father's sister.
Catlett would act out her scenes with Cary Grant, demonstrating to her that her performance would be much more effective if she played it in a more natural manner. It would be advice taken to heart, as the thoughtful comedic nuances she brings to her portrayal of Susan Vance would become classic rom-com ideals, and would solidify her adaptable standing as an actress.
You mean this is your car?
Of course.
Your golf ball? Your car? Is there anything in the world that doesn't belong to you?
Yes, thank heaven, you.
Now, don't lose your temper.
My dear young lady, I'm not losing my temper. I'm merely trying to play some golf.
Well, you choose the funniest places. This is a parking lot.
Susan's crafty and intuitive nature, contrasted to that of David's more structured but bumbling demeanor, is the most opposite and entertaining dynamic. His work and world has been of the dead and lifeless, and she brings an unconventional enthusiasm to things, a zest for living that he unknowingly craves, and despite his reluctance and justified frustration at Susan's comical torment, we nevertheless find David slowly opening up and embracing some of her energy and fearlessness.
Well, maybe we better sing. I can't give you any... Well, sing, David.
I can't give you anything but love, baby. That's the only thing I can think of, baby. Dream a while, scheme a while, to find happiness, and I guess all those things you've always pined for.
Hepburn's portrayal as the confidently aloof Susan Vance is generally credited as the origin of the proverbial manic pixie dream girl archetype. This archetype represents a female character depicted as quirky and free-spirited whose seeming sole function within the story is to inspire a greater appreciation of life for the male protagonist. Not without its criticisms, Hepburn's iconic role in Bringing Up Baby paved the way for a style of character that would repeatedly influence countless stories and characters in the future, Screwball or not.
Oh, look, David, I lost my heel. I lost my heel. Look at me walk.
Susan!
I was born on the side of a hill.
Susan, stop!
I was born on the side of a hill.
Susan, stop!
Additionally, the film boasts a handful of exceptional comedic talent rounding out the cast, including Charles Ruggles, May Robson, and Walter Catlett. Each of their portrayals with their own offbeat characteristics bring an extra layer of hilarity to every scene they occupy. Their performances complement and magnify one another, the ideal quality of a perfect acting ensemble.
Well, now, please. Fine, officer, you are locking up a dangerous criminal without locking him up.
It's not locked.
Yeah, huh?
It's not locked.
Oh, thank you.
But of course, the film wouldn't have its signature appeal without the wonderful animal performances of Skippy the dog as George, who had quite a filmography himself, and Nisa the leopard as Baby. Ironically enough, Nisa as Baby is perhaps the most grounded and reasonable character in the film. This is greatly due to the craft of her trainer, Olga Celeste, and cinematographers Vernon L. Walker and Linwood Dunn. Celeste, similar to the relationship between Susan and Baby, shared a close bond with Nisa. Training many leopards for the Luna Park Zoo in Los Angeles, Celeste's training approach, rather than relying on physical tactics, was more gentle and verbal-based. Among the leopards she trained, Nisa was her favorite, and she would even reside with her in her home. Nisa had an affinity for fragrances, and Celeste would use perfume as one of her main training techniques. During filming, perfume would be spritzed on Hepburn, so Nisa would voluntarily interact with her. Hepburn displayed a fearless confidence when working with Nisa, a trait that Cary Grant, on the other hand, did not quite possess.
Susan, you've got to get out of this apartment.
But, David, I can't. I have a lease.
His trust in Celeste's just off-screen capabilities was understandably shaky, as Nisa, despite her good nature, was still a leopard.
Oh, Susan, I don't like leopards.
Just think of him as being a house cat, David.
Well, I don't like cats either.
Stand still, David. Don't be nervous.
Oh, make him stand still.
Don't be.
Collaborating closely with cinematographers and special effects artists Walker and Dunn, Howard Hawks devised a range of cinematic workarounds to ensure the safety of his cast and crew. In addition to close-ups and stand-ins, a flurry of unique special effects tricks were used. Rear projection, puppets, and the newer technique of traveling split shots were masterfully employed to seamlessly blend the actors with the leopard on screen. These elements combine so smoothly that any imperfections are really only noticeable to the viewer if they are actively searching for them. Together with the performances, these elements confirm the illusion that these actors are without question sharing the screen with a real-life leopard. Harold Lloyd, Grant's Huxley inspiration, would credit the film as the best constructed comedy he had ever seen. The film took the blossoming style of screwball comedy and pushed it to its limits, delivering an abundance of hijinks, cleverly ambiguous dialogue,
It's, bone.
physical comedy, and subtle class commentary, as well as some humorous musings on the merits of science, law enforcement, and psychiatry.
The love impulse.
Without my knowing anything about it, my rough guess would be that he has a fixation on you. A fixation.
No, wait a minute. I can't remember any more than that. A fixation.
That's right.
The love impulse in man frequently reveals itself in terms of conflict.
That's right.
Oh, I'm eternally grateful to you.
You're
You're
welcome.
absolutely wonderful. Thank you a
Pleasure,
million times.
But ultimately, Bringing Up Baby succeeds because of its wildly dedicated performances, skillful direction, and inventive storytelling.
Do you know why you're following me? You're a fixation.
Well, the whole thing is a complete exaggeration, and as a matter of fact, there was nobody in it that was normal.
No.
I often think that was a mistake, but it turned out that I think it would have been better at the box office when we made it if there'd been a few sane people rather than everybody nuts.
Yeah.
Good gracious, what was that?
That was a loon, Elizabeth. Loon, L-O-O-N, yes. I'm sure that once you got the jungle in your blood, I wouldn't be able to keep you out of it, you know.
I didn't hear a thing.
You did? Oh, my.
Horace, are you quite sure that was a loon?
Oh, yes, indeed, Elizabeth. I've heard many a loon, and if there ever was a loon, that is a loon.
While having the appearance of such chaos and disorganization, Bringing Up Baby surprisingly exhibits a great deal of harmony and symmetry, showcasing how contrary forces can band together and become something special. While Hawks is correct in suggesting the film is fully manic, wild, and absolutely absurd, there is a bit of true-life reflection to glean. Life is noisy and chaotic, at times due to the exuberant and eccentric individuals and relationships in our lives. In the midst of its farcical situations, the bones of Bringing Up Baby offer a genuine worldview. Living, in all its crazy ups and downs, must be embraced. There is joy in the journey, and we all could use a partner in crime.
I'm so sorry.
But I ought to thank you.
Thank me?
Yes. You see, well, I've just discovered that was the best day I ever had in my whole life.
David, you don't mean that.
I never had a better time.
But I was there.
Well, that's what made it so good.
Bringing Up Baby initially was a commercial flop. Hepburn, who was already facing criticism from the industry, would be labeled box office poison. In response, she would buy out her RKO contract and take an extended hiatus from Hollywood. The film's lack of success also prompted RKO to remove Howard Hawks as director from Gunga Din. Thankfully, neither Hepburn nor Hawks were finished shaping their legacies. Hepburn would soon return to the screen to become arguably the most celebrated actress of all time. Hawks would continue his illustrious career, directing a handful of instant classics across various genres, becoming a revered auteur in his own right. Katherine Hepburn and Cary Grant would reunite to star in 2 more acclaimed screwball comedies together, but neither film would quite go off the rails as much as Bringing Up Baby did.
Oh, yes. Hand me my clothes with it.
Oh, David, they aren't here. They're being pressed.
What?
I mean, the gardener's taken them into town.
Oh, well, stop him. I can't wait. I must leave here immediately.
David, you can't leave without your clothes.
Well, I know that.
In the 1950s and 60s, the film experienced a rebirth of sorts as it found frequent play on television. This time around, audiences were able to recognize the comic brilliance on display, and a newfound admiration for the film was formed. This appreciation seemed to confirm that Bringing Up Baby was indeed ahead of its time.
Well, who are you?
Who are you?
Well, who are you?
What do you want?
Well, who are you?
I don't know. I'm not quite myself today.
Well, you look perfectly idiotic in those clothes.
These aren't my clothes.
Well, where are your clothes?
I've lost my clothes.
Well, why are you wearing these clothes?
Because I just went gay all of a sudden.
As the country emerged from the grip of the Great Depression and censorship guidelines became more relaxed, the screwball comedy gradually faded away. A true loss to cinema, really, as the screwball was one of the most compelling and entertaining ways to tell stories of romance on screen, presenting captivating narratives that were equally intimate, hilarious, and cleverly wholesome.
You can't climb in a man's bedroom window.
I know, it's on the 2nd floor.
In the modern filmic landscape, we can find occasional nods to the screwball comedy, but these films are more of homage than direct revival attempts. Oddly enough, the constraints that once demanded the screwball's inception seem to have confined modern rom-coms into a similar yet antithetical bind. Whether the genre will ever experience a true resurgence remains to be seen, but today, the seemingly dated stories of the screwball comedy still continue to delight as a timeless showcase of a bygone era of filmmaking.
Now, we have found distinct evidence. Yes, now, well, I'll just explain to these gentlemen.
No,
we have found distinct evidence.
Oh, he's escaped.
Yeah.
Shall we help you tie him up, lady?
Oh, no, not me. No.
Bringing Up Baby is one of the most ridiculous comedies of all time, and one of its most intelligent. It's also one of the most breakneck comedies of all time, and one of its most enduring. By way of a leopard, a dinosaur, and Cary Grant in a frilly bathrobe, Bringing Up Baby is stupid and smart. It's silly and sophisticated. It's growing up while dumbing down. Bringing Up Baby is an abundance of things, but ultimately, it's screwball. Perhaps at its screwiest.
This is probably the silliest thing that ever happened to me.
This is Levity Light Classics.